District.
We'll call the meeting to order. If you'll all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you would remain standing afterwards, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today we learned of the passing of an employee of the city of Norwalk for over a decade. A person taken much too young. Frank Strouch was a member of the Planning and Zoning Department. He was a site planner, a very pleasant young man, a very community-oriented person who really welcomed people in and did everything he could to help them. So I just wanted to have a moment of silence. He will be very, very much missed. Thank you. Clerk, if you'll call the roll and read the prepared announcement.
April 9, 2019. Please be advised, this meeting is being taped for audio and video broadcast. The meeting will also be closed captioned. It's important that everyone speak clearly into the microphones and only one person speak at a time. Assisted listening devices are available. Mr. Burnett.
Present.
Mr. Corsello.
Here.
Mr. Hostin.
Present.
Mr. Sachinelli.
Present.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Melendez.
Here.
Mr. Ioannidis.
Here.
Mr. Dumas. Ms. Young.
Here.
Mr. Kites.
Here.
Ms. Siegelbaum.
Here.
Mr. Hempstead.
Here.
Mr. Ioannidis.
Here.
Mr. Igneri.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
14 present. I have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 26, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Ray.
Moved by Mr. Igneri. Do we have any corrections, deletions, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, public participation.
Dave Davidson.
Good evening. I'm Dave Davidson, residing at 16 Betmalia Road in Norwalk. I speak before you tonight as a citizen of Norwalk, and I am not in any way representing any board or commission. My comments relate to the agenda item dealing with the approval of the capital budget. Last year, you approved a long-term school renovation program of approximately $150 million, a program that has overwhelming support from the citizens of the city. During the year, you approved a supplemental appropriation for Norwalk High School, adding another $11 million to the program. And now, the capital budget before you is asking for an additional $20+ million for the same school renovation program. The effect of this program will result in an impact on the operating budgets of future years, from a recent annual debt service of approximately $25 million to debt service doubling in a few years to approximately $50 million and continuing at that level for many years thereafter. The question of how the city is going to handle the debt service impact in future operating budgets should be of concerning to you, but that is not the subject of my comments this evening. What concerns me tonight is the impact of this continually increasing program on the Operations and Public Works Department, on Transportation, and on the Parks and Recreation Departmental budgets, which are being starved to support the school programs. By limiting the OPW budget to $10 million a year, when almost 60% of that is going to paving and sidewalks, will result in continuing infrastructure deterioration that the city can ill afford. By ignoring the needs of our young people asked for in the park and recreation budgets, you are doing a serious disservice to the young people in our city. When you hear, as I have heard, that the Board of Education is already indicating that they're going to have trouble staying within their existing capital budgets for projects not yet under construction and are looking to come back for additional funds, you may shudder as I have. So what do I ask you to do tonight? I ask you to rethink and not rubber stamp the capital budget in front of you for an additional $20+ million for the school renovation program. Look into it for yourself and convince the people of this great city that you are an independent legislative body elected to represent their interests and will not permit the sacrifice of the other needs of the city by continuing to support an ever-increasing program that the city can ill afford. Thank you.
Elizabeth Greenwood.
Stop. Okay, good.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Greenwood, and I am a state advocate for the disabled, and I am speaking forth of the fact that numerous disabled people within the city have been coming to me, and two most recently, who are being threatened by mental people at large numbers are coming in and being allowed to come into the Norwalk housing and threatening the disabled along with other entities of the city. Therefore, I'm asking that more action being taken to assist and protect the disabled to live in the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Flynn.
Hi. Not prepared, but if you could just hear me out for a few moments. One of the people who Elizabeth has been helping in October was woken at 11 o'clock at night by an informant.
Mr. Flynn?
And I need to say
no,
this.
Let me finish, please.
And you're going to tell me that
Mr.
I
Flynn.
don't have a right to speak.
No, we allowed a courtesy for Ms. Greenwood to speak, but the only items on which the public can participate in this meeting are items that are now on the agenda for consideration
I
tonight.
tried to put it on the agenda. I
But it's not an
called
agenda item, so thank you very much.
Mrs.
Thank you.
Dixon. And
Is there
if you
anybody
guys-
else?
If you guys,
Mr. Flynn,
I just want to say,
I've asked you to understand that you have not spoken on an item. If you wish to speak on an item that is currently on the agenda.
I tried to put it on the agenda.
So
I don't
the
see it
answer,
on
so
the
your
agenda.
answer is no. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to address the Common Council at this point? There's nobody else that's signed up to address the council. Thank you. We will close public participation. Next item on the agenda is our resignations and appointments. First resignation is Mr. Steve Quantz, who was a Shellfish Commission. I know Steve is not here, but he served for many years on the Police Department, in the Marine Division. He also served for many years on the Shellfish Commission, and I want to thank him for his service. He's feeling that he can no longer attend the meetings like he needs to attend, and again, thank you for your service, Mr. Quantz. Under appointments, it is my pleasure to put forward the name Nick Roberts for Director of Recreation and Parks, a person with an impeccable resume who was vetted and tested with many, many, many other applicants, and it was a unanimous choice of the interview committee as well as my choice when I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Roberts to interview him afterwards. So putting forward the name of Nick Roberts, Director of Recreation and Parks. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Corsello.
If I could briefly comment on that. I was not on the search committee, but I did have an opportunity to get familiar with Mr. Roberts through his resume, and it was impressive. He's got his master's from North Carolina State in parks, recreation, tourism, and sports management, I believe. But I was a little concerned because and although it mentioned that he had served in administrative capacity with parks departments in Naples, Florida, Savannah, Georgia, and Miami, didn't indicate a lot of familiarity with Norwalk, with its residents, with its parks, and with the employees of our parks department. So I was a little concerned, and then I met him. And I have to tell you, he's a quick study. He is already quite far up to speed with regard to our parks. He's a people person. He's interacted already with some of the employees on staff of our Parks Department. In fact, I heard from the acting director that he was very pleased to meet you and very excited to work with you. And although he's not a native Norwalker, he shares a lot in common in that he is from New York City, and we have many displaced, or I should say well-placed New Yorkers, former New Yorkers, and you're going to fit right in. Great choice.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ms. Smith.
I'd like to add a few comments. It was a pleasure to meet Mr. Roberts the other day, and I found him to have a vision for our Parks Department and our Parks programs, and one of the things that I asked him to be aware of is the difficulties for our children who live in poverty and the problems that we have with getting swimming lessons for them. It's a health issue, it's a concern for their safety, and so he was so responsive to that that I was really impressed with his answers. The other thing is he's already taken an apartment in Norwalk, and that impressed me a lot because you'll get to know our city so well and get to know our people and our needs. And he's a Yankee fan. That's okay by me.
Well, in spite of that. Any further discussion? Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, thank you. I also had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Roberts, and I was very impressed with him as well, and echo the comments we've just heard. I just want to also add that he is a certified park and recreation professional and also accreditation visitor for the Commission for Accreditation of Parks and Recreation Agencies, which accredits parks and recreation agencies throughout the country for excellence in operation and service. And I think that's a great goal for us to have, and I'm looking forward to Mr. Roberts working to get us accredited. And I welcome him to Norwalk.
Further discussion? One of the things, and we had a meeting yesterday with Mr. Roberts, and he did mention again about being an assessor for the Commission on Accreditation for Parks. Norwalk has the distinction of having the largest municipal police department in the state of Connecticut, one of only 800 or so across the nation that is nationally accredited, as well as the first health department in the state of Connecticut being nationally accredited. And I have issued the challenge to Mr. Roberts that I wish to start that process and get our Recreation and Parks Department accredited nationally. So without further ado, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Congratulations and welcome aboard.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, Mayor, and the rest of the council members. Norwalk is certainly a beautiful place to live and play. I'm looking forward to working with the staff as well as the community, enhancing our recreational programs, and I look forward to the challenge of getting our department accredited. So thank you all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the appointment of Casey Fitzpatrick for Human Relations. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move it, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Hostin?
I'd like to move Casey Fitzpatrick be appointed to the Human Relations Commission. I've known Casey for a number of years. He has a diverse background in the arts and in communication. He is a local business owner here on Wall Street, Troop 429. He embodies a spirit of civic engagement and generosity, and is driven by an inspiring passion for equality, and respect for all human beings, and I think he would be a strong addition to the commission.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Burnett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. All things being equal, he also attended Syracuse University, which makes him more than qualified.
Further discussion? Ms. Melendez.
Just very briefly, I also happen to know Casey from visiting his establishment in our district. And I'm just super thankful that he decided to open his business and to live in Norwalk and to live in Norwalk. And I know that he will be a great addition to this commission because of how much he cares. So I'm glad that we're putting his name forward.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, I've had the occasion to meet Casey on many different times and different events that he held at the Troop 429. And again, it's a welcome addition when you have not only a person who invests their money in opening a small business, but invests their time in helping to make the city a better city than it can, the greatest city it can be. So without further ado, first, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Congratulations. Next, appointment for the Zoning Commission. Stephanie Thomas, the Zoning Commission, regular position. Mr. Kides.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move Stephanie Thomas. And Stephanie's one of those people where I think nearly everyone in this room has tried to lobby her to get involved for in one way or another. And I could say that the reason for that is her strong work ethic, her ability to work with others, and just the light she brings to any room she's in. So I think Norwalk is very lucky to have her, and thank you for stepping up. Thank you.
Further discussion? Ms. Melendez.
I also want to add, being someone who's worked with Stephanie, her work ethic is amazing, and I only wish we had like 100 of you to serve the city in a million different capacities. But I'm so glad that you're going to be on the Zoning Commission because it's a very serious job, but you're the perfect person for it. So urge all my colleagues to support her.
Further discussion? Ms. Young.
So I haven't had the pleasure of knowing Stephanie, I think, as long as Mr. Kides, but I think I've gotten to know you over the past year or so. And as he said, you bring a light to any room that you're in, but I think you're level-headed. You always try to work. She always tries to bring consensus and is very thoughtful in that. And I just think that she's going to be a real good addition to the Zoning Commission because that's a pretty difficult commission to be on, and it takes a lot of thinking and forethought and working together to do what's right for the city. So thank you for agreeing to do this.
Further discussion? Ms. Siegelbaum.
So I just wanted to add that Stephanie impressed me the instant I heard her voice at a meeting several years ago as somebody who could do great things for Norwalk, and I've gotten to know her better over the years, and I have not changed my mind. So zoning is very lucky to have you.
Further discussion? Mr. Hostin.
I just wanted to add that I do think that zoning may be a challenging commission. I'm so glad that Stephanie's being put forward to join it because I think she is a natural diplomat who brings out the best in those around her, and I look forward to her doing that on the Zoning Commission.
Further discussion? I too am thrilled to see Ms. Thomas stepping up. We need good people to serve the community, and you know it's a challenge because the pay is not that good. The time commitment can be quite exhausting, but I know you've got the talent, the experience, and more importantly, the desire to do what's in the best interest of our city. So again, welcome aboard, and with that, I will ask for all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have 3 reappointments to the Library Board. We have the current chairman, former Mayor Alex Knopp, Ralph Bloom, one of our historians, and Tyrone McLean. So I think I'll ask for a motion to move them all at once, and then for comments. Ms. Melendez.
I'll move them, all 3, and just briefly, I know that you 2 are here, but Tyrone isn't, but I just want to thank you for serving on the library board and for being willing to serve again. Our library is an amazing asset to the city, and it just keeps on getting better, so just wanted to say that.
Further discussion? Mr. Igneri.
Well, we all know Alex, but a little-known person is Ralph Bloom. He works tirelessly behind the scene. He really knows the collection of books and art and everything else, and he tirelessly drives around the city picking up donations. So congratulations, and I look forward to working with you again.
Mr. Hempstead.
And just for point of information about Mr. Bloom, a lot of people don't know he's the last
Put your microphone
surviving
down.
member, I think, that originally fought to preserve the Lockwoods Matthews Mansion. I think you're the last person still living, as far as I know. So that shows you how far back his commitment really goes to the city and its stature and trying to make sure our historical assets are protected. Thank you for all the work you've done over the years.
Further discussion? I want to thank former Mayor Knopp for his leadership at the library. Some of your efforts that you have implemented are going to make the library an amazing place, a place that it should be, a resource for all the city of Norwalk. You know, we've worked on the parking issue, we're working on CPTV, we're working on library expansion. There's so many exciting things happen down in that area that I just, you know, want to thank you for all your efforts. And Ralph, I know I've known you for a very, very long time. And John is right. You are kind of a behind the scenes guy. You just do your job, do it quietly, and you do it remarkably. So thank you for being our unofficial historian. I don't know, but you seem to... Official historian. I stand corrected. But thank you very, very much for all that you do. So again, I will call for a vote. All in favor of the three appointments? Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen, and welcome aboard. Next is the appointment to the Parking Authority, Mr. Richard Brescia. Do I have a motion? Mr. Sirenides.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of working with Mr. Brescia on the Parking Authority over the past year. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience that's been very helpful in dealing with a lot of the challenges we faced with parking. I look forward to continue to work with him.
Further discussion? Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also like to support the nomination of Mr. Brescia. He has presented several times before the Finance Committee, and not only has he expressed the fine work of the Parking Authority, but he's also brought several ideas of innovation to the Parking Authority, which are of great benefit to the city of Norwalk.
Further discussion. Mr. Hempstead.
2 words, professional and dedicated. Thank you for your work that you do.
Further discussion. I know Mr. Brescia for many years myself, and I'll tell you, every month I get a comprehensive report, an update on the Traffic Authority and what's going on and what things they're planning and what things they've accomplished. So it's refreshing. And Dick, thank you for all that you do for the Parking Authority and for the city of Norwalk. And I know it can be challenging because one thing everybody complains about is parking, but you step up to the plate and you try to work with people and help them understand some of the things that are happening. And by the way, I know we had some issues over at Liberty Square, and one of the property owners at Liberty Square called me and says, you know what, I was complaining about the paid parking over there, but it was the best thing you could have done, so thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have 2 appointments, reappointments to the Water Pollution Control Authority. I don't see either of them here, but I'll ask for moving them together. Darren Ostafine and Frederica Hajian. Mr. Igneri.
I'm pleased to move Darren Ostafine and, as we know, her Frederica. I am, as chairman of DPW, I sit on the WPCA, and I work with these people. Darren is chairman of the committee and does a fantastic job keeping us focused and moving the meetings along. He also brings great knowledge of what works, given his past experience. Frederica Kakis is an accountant, and she questions every time we try to move for a loan to finance some pipes or pumps. She's questioning the impact on the city, and she does a great job. So I look forward to working with them again.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. If we'll have Alex and Ralph and Stephanie, Casey left, Dick, if you'll all come down and have the clerk issue your oath of office or administer your oath of office. So we'll save you a trip to City Hall. Right over here. We'll do the library board first.
When I say you, just say your name. You, having been reappointed as a member of the Public Library Board of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury.
Congratulations. Thank you.
If you'll sign each of these.
Sign both of them and then take one with you. Is Stephanie next?
Stephanie's first. You're making me cry with those little speeches. Okay, Stephanie. Thank you. You, Stephanie Thomas, having been appointed as a member of the Zoning Commission of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury.
Congratulations.
Sign them both, and then you can leave me one, okay?
You've got 1 minute to back out. Are you sure you want to do this again? You should be a doctor.
He plays one on TV. Richard. You, Richard Ambrescia, having been reappointed as a member of the Parking Authority of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear or affirm that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, or upon the pains and penalties of perjury.
Sign the second one and you keep the second one.
There you go. That one's yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Next on the agenda, Mayor's comments. On Saturday, April 27th at 10 a.m., we'll have our annual spring cleanup across the city. We're going to meet at City Hall this year as opposed to meeting at Lowe's. And we're going to hand out gloves, bags, T-shirts, and litter pickup tools while the supplies last. Your team can then choose a location such as your neighborhood, local park or beach, business area, schoolyard, or shoreline. It's everybody's duty and responsibility to help keep Norwalk clean. And I know with the winter passing and the fall and the high winds coming, and there seems to be litter everywhere, but with our effort and just picking up those things that you happen to see, whether you're walking in your neighborhood, whether you want to help adopt a spot, it'll help keep Norwalk beautiful. We have an amazing city here, and we want people who live here and people who come to visit look at us as a clean city as well. So when we've had this in the past, we've had as many as 100 volunteers coming out and helping, and it makes a huge difference. We collect plastic bags, bottles, tires, all kinds of different things. You wouldn't believe what people dispose of. And hopefully with some educational opportunities, we can get people to be a little bit more responsible and making sure that they help clean up, or that they maybe carry a litter bag in their car or something and not throw it out on the street. Also, next week, we will celebrate the holy days of the Jewish and Christian faith. Friday, April 19th is Good Friday, followed by Easter Sunday on the 21st. Friday the 19th is also the start of Passover. We're wishing you and yours a happy and peaceful holiday season. Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before turning to the consent calendar, I just want to note for those watching that pursuant to the City Code, the BET has tentatively approved the FY 19-20 operating budget, and we as a council have until the third Tuesday of April to amend the cap. We're not doing it at this meeting, and I don't imagine we're going to do it before that, which is the 16th. So accordingly, the BET will approve the final operating budget at their meeting on Monday, May 6, 2019. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of those dates, or that date. And with that, I'll turn to the consent calendar. Mr. Hostin will be reading today. Reminder for those listening that if an item you're interested in is on the approved consent calendar, that means there'll be no further discussion and it is approved. Mr. Hostin?
Thank you. Item 7A1, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement between the City of Norwalk and the owner of the property identified as number 7 Margaret Street, Norwalk, Connecticut 06851, Angela V. Akunzade, to establish a right of entry for the purposes of resizing the pipe of the existing storm outlet for maintenance purposes and meeting existing upstream flow, subject to Section 8-24 of the state statutes if required. Item 7A2A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Deering Construction, Inc. for project PM 2019-2 permanent pavement repairs and surface restoration for a sum not to exceed $387,875, account numbers listed. Item 7A2B, authorize the Chief of Operations and Public Works to execute orders on the contract with Deering Construction, Inc. for project PM 2019-2 permanent pavement repairs and surface restoration for a sum not to exceed, is this a typo?
Yes, that's correct.
$38,787.50. Account numbers listed. Item 7A3, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents necessary for Prime AE Group, Inc. to assign to 3SG Plus, LLC, its rights and obligations under Prime AE Group, Inc.'s contract with the City of Norwalk for scanning and indexing services pertaining to the electronic document management system project, dated January 5th, 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Hostin. I still think you got off easy. All right, all in favor of the consent calendar as read, please indicate by saying aye, raising your hand. Opposed? Unanimous. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Mr. Kides, item 7B1.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that and just briefly speak to it.
Mr. Kides, move the item and has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot of good things to talk about in this capital budget, and that the public definitely should be made aware of, because with this capital budget, we're not just getting by, but we're raising the bar and improving the quality of life for Norwalk residents. And I just want to give a few examples on how this capital budget is doing that. And first being a $23.5 million investment into new construction and major improvements for our schools citywide. This is a continuation of the city's commitment to the Board of Education's Facilities Master Plan. Second, we have a $5 million being invested and committed to street paving and close to $1 million for sidewalks. And I'm proud to say that Norwalk still has the highest paving budget in the area, and we actually checked into this. And to put that into perspective, Stamford, which is a larger city but comparable, has allocated $4 million in their 1920 fiscal year paving budget. Thirdly, I'd like to mention that the design cost to modernize and improve our main library, thanks to the library, Mayor Knopp and all the folks over there doing some hard work. This is the city's commitment to eventual construction of this facility. And lastly, I just want to bring up the upgrades to our sports fields and parks. We're making major achievements there, and someone with children in the leagues and involved with the various leagues around the city, I'm very proud of this. And just to quickly go through a couple of those, a major investment, long overdue, is the construction of the West Rocks Soccer Complex, design of the Broad River Baseball Complex, the construction of restrooms at Nathan Hale, design of a turf softball field, and major improvements to our basketball and tennis courts across the city. So this was a group effort. I want to thank the Planning Commission, of course, the Mayor, Planning Committee, and we should all be proud of this budget, and I hope for its approval this evening. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kides. Further discussion. Mr. Livingston.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo Mr. Kides' comments. I think this is a very good budget that keeps the city really moving forward in a positive way. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that are big and small that don't get a lot of attention. The first one is for Lockwood Matthews Mansion is an item of $2.5 million to be added to a $5 million state grant the mansion got a year or two ago, which will enable them to complete the mechanical upgrades and add safety systems. This is a big deal. Without it, the mansion would not be able to take advantage of that grant. So it's going to be a big improvement to the building, allowing more people to use it year-round. So it's a great thing. A smaller item is just there's a feasibility for the McMahon softball turf field, and I think this is a small item, but it shows the commitment to the city to athletic fields throughout the city. And I just want to note one thing that's been raised, which is that there has been some concern about artificial turf fields, and I think as we move forward with this, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that the fields are safe. But I know that's going to be done. But I think it's good to look at these things like the McMahon Field and other places in the city. And last, I just want to note another small item, which is a new permit software. It's a small item, not a lot of money, I think $25,000, but there have been a lot of people who have asked about how we can streamline the city's permitting process. And this is software that is used by some of the larger cities in the country, which enables a much smoother process, which does not require the time commitment of a lot of volunteers, and just makes it easy for everybody. So again, these are just a couple items I wanted to highlight. I think it's a great budget and recommended highlight.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Further discussion. Mr. Hempstead.
I just want to make it clear. It's obviously I'm not a rubber stamp, the way my voting record is. But I said from day one when we first started talking about expanding our school system and building new schools, I was 100% behind it, back when others were not. And I've said fast that it's time we build new schools instead of keep trying to add on to existing schools. Am I disappointed? The numbers were not correct, but some of that was figured slightly lower than it should have been when we first got the assumptions. I understand the strain on the budget with that, but I think investing in our schools this stage games with new school is the right way to go, not the wrong way to go, because at the end of the day, that increases our values of our homes and our quality of life in the city of Norwalk. So I wholeheartedly support this capital budget, and saying I'm even smallers, but I think are sometimes go by the wayside, which are still being supported. Our street tree planting programs, our street trees after probably 30 years is still there, and our commitment to ADA improvements also throughout the city.
Further discussion. Mr. Burnett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it relates to the comments that were made about school construction, when you look at the numbers on paper, they could be very overwhelming. But I would just like to emphasize that through the leadership of Mr. Livingston and the Building and Land Committee, each month we look at each and every school project line by line and how much money is being spent on what item, and we spend a considerable amount of time questioning how our city dollars are being spent on those projects. So it's not as if we're just adding millions of dollars to the capital project, but each of these projects are being managed on a monthly basis So we are well aware of the cost, how money's being spent, so I just want to bring that forward, that there is a level of confidence as we look at these projects and how they're progressing.
Thank you. Further discussion? Mr. Holston.
I just wanted to kind of state overall, I mean, I don't think anybody here considers themselves a rubber stamp, but I think that one of the things I look at for any government is, you can tell their priorities by where they spend their money. And I think looking at this capital budget with things like important infrastructure around our stormwater drainage, the importance that everybody here agrees on the health of our schools, and even something like, thinking of the future of our main branch of our library, thinking of our library as a library of the 21st century. I think that these priorities reflect the best interests of Norwalk and the best interests of the citizens here.
Thank you. Further discussion? I just want to thank the Planning Commission, Planning Committee, members of the various committees, because it is a very challenging thing to formulate a budget that places priorities on what is important to the community. I know that there's some concern about the estimates coming in for some of the school projects. Mr. Hamilton, Dr. Adamowski, me, my team have been discussing this, and we believe that by doing some different kinds of things that we're going to be able to reconcile that shortfall, and we're going to make sure that we can get these projects underway so that our young people can have schools, our teachers can have schools of which they can be proud. A school that has air conditioning, a school that if you plug in a microwave oven, it doesn't turn off the computer, those kinds of things. And for an awful long time, our schools haven't had the upgrades that they're needed. Some of our schools are 50, 60 years old at the end of their useful life. And we have to make a decision. Do we put good money into an older building, or do we determine that perhaps it's better to build a new school in place of the school that, rather than putting money into that building? So it's a challenge, but working together, I know that we're going to be able to do it. We're going to be able to get it done. And again, I think that we put together a budget that not only works on our schools, but if you look at historically what we have done for the recreational fields and the recreational programs throughout the city, most people would be amazed. So again, I thank you for all your efforts as well. So unless there's further discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Igneri, Mr. Hempstead?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, yes, no, we have one more. I'm sorry. Yeah, you have a motion to go off the agenda.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and amend the agenda by adding the following item: to authorize Mayor Rilling to enter into an agreement with JS Endurance for the use of Veterans Park for their Sono Half Marathon 5K to be held Saturday, October 6, 2019, from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., was set up to begin at 6 a.m. and tear down no later than 2 p.m. on Saturday, October 6, 2019. Estimated attendance, 1,500.
Motion first to go off the agenda. All in favor? And now a motion as read by Mr. Corsello. Any discussion, any further discussion? Mr. Corsello?
Just by way of explanation, previously, you may remember, we unanimously approved this, the Sono Half Marathon 5K for a different date. It was a Saturday, October 19th. We approved the race to be held at Veterans Park, but that's contingent upon, of course, getting a special events permit and it being cleared with the traffic authority. Because of that date, there were all sorts of logistical difficulties. The date had to be moved. People made a lot of accommodations. This is now going to be held on a Saturday.
Sunday.
I'm sorry.
Sunday.
On a Sunday. And because time is very much of the essence, we're writing it on the agenda at this point in time because the applications need to go out. And traffic authority needs to approve it.
Ms. Young.
Has the race, what do you call it, trail, the route changed at all?
Yes, it has.
It has, and if there are any questions, the organizers of the race are both present here today, if there are any questions that one may have.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it has changed. The Whipples met with the police department, and the route has changed, and it has been, actually, it has been approved by the traffic authority, but unfortunately, when we met, the traffic authority voted to have it, I believe, on October 20th, and it's now going to be held earlier because October 20th, unbeknownst to us, there had been another race or another
event
walk.
A lupus walk, I believe.
Yeah, scheduled. So it's going to go back before the traffic authority, but the traffic authority has seen the route, has approved the route. It's just that we have to go back before the traffic authority to approve it for that particular day.
I only brought 9 copies. I apologize. I didn't know how many I would need. But we did change the route. There's no more West Avenue, East Avenue, or Wall Street, which were big concerns, obviously, with the amount of traffic on those roads. So we basically go up to Rowayton now, come back down to Veterans Park area, go into East Norwalk. The biggest concern, obviously, was the Saturday, which we only did because we passed a lot of churches along the route in South Norwalk near the police station, on West Avenue, East Avenue. So now this route does not go down those roads, so we did make it a Sunday. We have a slightly earlier start, so I don't think there'll be any issues, and the traffic authority and the mayor seem pretty happy with the new route.
And I do want to say, thank the Whipples and Chief Kahalwick and the staff at the police department. There were some concerns expressed at the traffic authority meeting. I think you were caught a little bit off guard, but you put pencil to paper and came up with a route that the police traffic authority felt very comfortable with.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, can I ask, so since you're changing the date, can we do some additional advertisement in the community? I think, I think what the Sono Arts Festival does, and I think we talked about it, the big sign that just kind of says you've changed the date, because it is just going to be something different for folks who are going to the churches in the area.
Yeah, we put those electronic signs out, letting people know that there's going to be the Sono half and the date and the times and so forth. And I believe the route has been published in the media, or will be. And so we're doing what we can to make sure that the people know.
Yeah, every year it's gotten definitely better. I mean, this will be the 5th year. We've had 3 LED signs throughout the city. We've had 150 yard signs. Social media is incredible for the race. People share it. We shared a little over 100 times last year, seen by over 8,000 people. The database for our race is over 5,000 people, so we send that email out. We will notify, there's one church off of Martin Luther King, which we don't affect their mass. We will notify them prior to make sure that they know. They can get out on both sides of either MLK or Soundview, so there should be no issues at all. So we definitely will make sure that people know about it. If there's additional banners and things of that could be hung in Sono, like I see there's one on the Sono overpass right on Washington Street. I'll speak with Parks and Rec about that. Maybe we can do that so South Norwalk residents know. But we won't even need to shut down South Norwalk really at all for the new route. Sono, the Pearl apartments should be able to get in and out of their apartment as well. Maybe not for 20 or 30 minutes, but better than the 2 hours that it was before. So this route is great. We're very excited about it. We weren't opposed to changing things. We just, once again, we were told by the police in year 1 to do it on a Saturday because of the churches, and we're excited about this. We think this route has longevity, and people showed how much they really cared about the race when they saw we had issues. So hopefully we have a smooth year.
Further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion as put forth? All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn?
Pardon me?
Motion to
Oh, you jumped right in there, didn't you? Ms. Melendez makes a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed?
Oh, I can point to